Hello everybody, this is the Goofsome Fox coming at you with a space match in the Silver Bullet. The Silver Bullet is a 650 cost general, and it's the newest banner suit for this week, or at least of the posting of this video, and it's actually been a really enjoyable suit. It has a plethora of weapons, including your standard J-Gun beam rifle and beam saber, as well as smoke discharge. You have your beam cannons on the back, missiles that cause incendiary damage, your wired beam saber, some incoms, and a what is it called? The beam launcher. They have so many different names for the beam weapons. And the most interesting weapon I think that this suit comes with is obviously has to be the wired beam saber that I just used. So essentially the attack is exactly what it sounds like. You launch your hand with your beam saber in it, and it will launch out and it will try to poke at an enemy that you lock onto. Interestingly enough though, even though it is using your beam saber, it doesn't count as a melee weapon. It actually counts as a ranged weapon, specifically a beam ammo type weapon, which is very interesting indeed. I think it's because I don't know if they can really do Saikuma weapons yet with like a melee stat without it being something similar to the Volgul and Moon Gundam, where it actually can control where its shots are going. Same thing with how the Drezian's tri-blades work. So yeah, weapons on the suit are all very good. It has a higher melee stat compared to the Dovin Wolf, so melee is kind of what they want you to do with this suit, which this thing does have some devastating downswings if you can get them off on the enemy. One flaw that this suit does have though is that it doesn't have a dodge roll, but you do have maneuver armor to help out with that, as well as damage control level 3. So the lack of a dodge roll actually hasn't been too much of an issue for this suit. Unlike the Dovin Wolf though, you do not get shock dampeners with this suit, so you can get stunned in one hit if you are just standing still, which is something that you definitely need to watch out for when you're using weapons like your missiles or you're charging your beam launcher, because you can get stunned out of it. So definitely it's smart with the beam launcher to find a safe place to fire with it, although I don't find me using it that much anyway, because most of the time I'm trying to move in with my team and try to get some melee swings in. Beam launcher. You can also use multiple weapons at once with this suit, which is also made it very good for comboing other suits. You can use the wired beam saber and the incoms at the same time. Then while that's going, you can also use your back beam cannons, your missiles, or your beam launcher if you so please, whichever one you'd like to go into. So you can definitely combo into this and actually deal some pretty decent range damage. Beam saber missed there. So yeah, it's very been an interesting suit. You're also smaller than the Dovin, which is another thing I realized when I was able to compare them side by side, and yeah, you have a smaller profile than the Dovin. It's slightly shorter and it's not as wide, so you are actually a smaller target compared to the suit that this is based off of. So looks like me and my team now are gonna aim at the enemy base, because there isn't much else to aim at, but I'm gonna charge my beam launcher just in case anybody shows up. The beam launcher is your standard continuous beam, so not much to really go into there. It can do 8,000 to 9,000 damage if you can land most of the hits, and it also depends on the target. Enemies are commencing support fire, so I'm going to just shoot my beam at the base and try to move, even though the support fire wasn't in my direction. I'd rather not take the risk. I'm gonna fire those missiles there, see if I can. Okay, I did hit somebody with them. So yep, 500 damage per tick, and I think that's standard for any suit. I don't think there's any difference between the types. Okay, that's a Gunny Doga right there, which is a perfect target for me if I can actually get melee off on it. And there's that double incom to beam that I mentioned earlier. The beam saber can stun targets if it hits, but since it's not a melee weapon, it can't go through maneuver armor and things like that, so that's a bit of a downside there, but I think if I find it easier to aim for larger targets with it, because since of the direction that it does its poke, it has a better chance of hitting a larger target than something small like a Tristan, so not that you can't hit the smaller units, but the larger targets are just more of a guaranteed hit in my opinion. Looks like, actually nope, not by myself. It looks like the EXS on my team just spawned in. We have our whole team here, so we're all gathered. I'm gonna start trying to charge my Mega Beam here, which I think I'm gonna hit. Yep, this is Equines here. So yep, 8,800 damage I think is what that said. Somewhere around that. Close to 9,000, which is pretty good on a general. I'm not sure what the beam defense on the Equines is, but hey, any damage is good damage as long as it helps your team. Here is this Doga again, and as well as a Gundam with the Hyper Hammer, which is actually a cost below its limits. But yeah, it did leave, so I'm able to focus this raid here. The incineraries, although I don't think those are gonna hit. Nope. Oh no, one did hit. The incineraries don't have a constant, like, fire-like direction. They do kind of spread out, which is good for dealing with crowds of enemies, which I think is the intent of what they want you to do with it. It's more of a deal with enemies type of deal. Right, there's the Gundam. Not gonna get the downswing off, but oh, yep, gonna get the beam cannons off there. Right, there is the C1. And I'm gonna just try to fire some missiles, but that's gonna be the end of this match. So, timeout. See what we are working with here. Mission completed. Alright, so top individual and top damage dealt. Looks like I'm going to praise the JSER, yep. And first place overall, 4,000 individual, 6 kills and 2 deaths. Not too bad. Alright, looks like some recycled tickets. Probably mechanic tickets for the limited missions. But yes, the Silver Bullet, I think it's definitely worth pulling for. It's actually a really good suit with lots of utility and equipment. Again, really the only big flaw with it is that it lacks a dodge roll, but even then with the maneuver armor and damage control skills, it's not too much of a hindrance. So yeah, definitely not a long-range suit by any means. Again, they do want you to play towards more of the melee play style with it, but you can probably add some mods if you do want to try to make it a bit more range-oriented for the larger maps, such as certain space maps or ground maps like the Supply Depot or Port Base. But with that, that's going to be the end of this video. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Later!